I've done a few videos here at the workbench over the last couple months with electronic stuff, but something else I do here at the workbench, and something people know me for every October, is costume making. This year I'm making a costume for my son, who wants to be an Enderman from the video game Minecraft. I've started with the arms, and as everything always does, I started with a cardboard mock-up. And the idea here of this design is these arms are longer than a 7-year-old boy's are, but he can reach in here, hold on to here. There's a door that closes over here. He can swing around his big arms that are longer and more ganglier than they are in reality, but then if he wants to use them, he can let go here and pop through. His elbow matches up with here. And from that cardboard template, I made these. And indeed, this pops open. There's a little handle in there. I can't fit my arm in here very well because my arms are a lot bigger and fatter than those of a 7-year-old. I've got 2 of those arms made. Same design, except mirrored, each with their own little door and handle. I'm going to put some Velcro here to keep them closed when it's time to close them. There's still work on these. I've got to clean up, and even though the end costume will be black, I'm going to paint these black arms black because it's just a texture thing. It seals it in. There's a good reason. The other thing that I've mocked up in cardboard is the body. Thankfully, Minecraft stuff, very square. I'm able to make things that aren't just made of cubes, but when it comes to this year, it's very cube-like. And here's the torso, so to speak. This was our prototype. You can see I've marked off here with the red line. It's too long. I'm going to shorten that, but this is still going to be the basis. We've got roughly the right width and just a little bit too long. So I'm going to recreate this in the same kind of foam panels that the other one is made out of. So I've got one of these cut. I cut these out of your regular kind of jigsaw edged, I call them yoga mats. And at the edge, I always cut a bevel. So when these things go together, they can go like that. A lot of people use contact cement for this. I use hot glue because I'm impatient, and that's what I've gotten used to using over the years. Now you can see it's kind of an ugly edge here where the dull blade didn't do exactly what I want. So to try and smooth that out, I've got sanding sticks, which are just made of little paint stirrer with the appropriate kind of sanding paper glued on. And you can do this to smooth out all kinds of rough edges. It's not too important on this because these are going to be hidden, but it's good to have them nice. I've got the front, now I need the back. Now I've already cut one beveled edge. I think these panels are to be 9.5 wide by 14 long. So what better way? I've got our top edge already set, but to get the bottom, I'm going to gently just drag the knife. I know the proportions, so I know what they will be, but it's got to meet the back, got to match up with that, so why not? Just with the weight of the knife. Now we've got our outline, and to actually cut these lines, I'm sure there's probably a rig, some kind of miter type jig that would help me cut at the perfect 45-degree angle, but I don't own one. This is a dollar store packing knife, and I just kind of cut at an angle. And the other 90 right here. Actually, before that's cut, right here we've got an outer bevel from the other panel, but I need to line up and do an inner bevel. another 45. Always cut towards yourself for safety, of course not. And one here. This framing square is a godsend and was once my father's. I believe he got through trade school with it. Somewhere here, he may even have his name engraved on it, but that's besides the point. So, I mentioned before, an ugly cut. Right now, that's pretty ugly. So, I'm just going to use some grade school scissors to make that externally good. At the edges of the cut, the knife can tend to drag and make things a little uglier than that. And I could tell while dragging, I've got some more ugly edges here on this. So, go at it with a sanding stick. Create some unintentional ASMR. Get those edges right. Once again, these edges are going to be hidden, so they don't need to be the most beautiful, but these should now serve as the front and back. Are they the same? They're the same enough for a child's costume. Next, now, I need to make the sides. Now, I found this one maybe a little more deep than I need, so I'm going to measure what I've got here and subtract maybe ½ inch. I can't subtract too much because this cardboard cutout is, of course, only the thickness of cutout, whereas foam is the thickness of foam. So you've got to give a little bit more, but I think I can still lose a bit. What do I have here? Is it exactly 9 on this side? And a bit more on the 9 on that side because I freehand cut this. So let's call it 9 in depth. 9 in width and 9 in depth. It's going to be pretty cube-like, but that's pretty appropriate for a Minecraft thing. So, oh yes, they're going to be 9 by what? These side things? I mean 9 by 8. Obviously, we need armholes here. So, 9 by 8, 8 by 9. Don't think. Oh, there actually is just barely enough for one of these panels cut out of what I already have, or is there? Let's just imagine there is. There's not, I can cut again. So, first thing I want to do, create a nice long bevel right at our jigsaw edge here. And push hard on the ruler while cutting. Not the ruler, the framing square. Now I can feel the ugliness of the edges. It's probably due in part to this blade getting a bit dull. So I'm actually gonna put that like that. I've got a vise over here, potentially off camera, I'm not sure. I'm gonna use that to break off the blade and use a fresh one. I'm also going to take out that blade shard before I forget about it. Cut myself with it. Okay, so as before, not the most beautiful 90 here, and there's already a gouge here, so let me just continue that gouge, regardless of how long it is or what kind of panel it leads. There's going to need to be a cut here. So let me actually line it up with the right angle that's here. This is where the framing square is really doing me a lot of favors when it comes to making things square. Oh, see, the foam is starting to come away as I get to the edge, and that's part of what makes some of my corners a bit ugly. It really messed that one up. Now honestly, that corner is so ugly it might not be salvageable, but I'll quickly cut the rest of the panel, or see if I have enough material to cut the rest of the panel from what's here. Because what's that? We said 8 by 9. I have exactly enough for 8. If it was 8.5, I said. I'll learn the difference, won't I? So we'll line it up with that 90-degree angle, and I'm just going to cut right on the edge of the foam. Yeah. And I'm sure the other dimension was 9. So have I a 9 here before that slit? I do. I have exactly a 9 before that slit. So let me line up with that 9 and this allegedly right edge. If they're not actually on the 90s, then at least they'll be consistent with each other. Ooh, so much of a smoother cut now after having snapped that blade versus that. Ooh, loud square. Now, let's see how that lines up with, yeah, it's not too bad actually. So, what I would have here is that by that, meeting up with that and that. I think those corners are good enough to work with, but the cornerest part of the corner is the worst part, so I'm going to carefully trim here so it looks like a straight line. Use the sanding stick that fell off to force some of these ugly lines straight. Honestly, I made this sanding stick probably like 5 years ago, and I've been using the same one on a lot of projects since. This corner now is real. That corner is ugly enough that it might benefit from a rougher sand. What I'm doing here is kind of getting back my 90 degree. That was lost by all that sloppy trimming. Probably do a bit on that as well. I think this is decent enough. So clumsily, since none of my remaining scraps are enough to make anything with, I'm gonna have to bonk another fresh jigsaw mat on the table to get another 8 by 9. Since so many of cuts I do are that inner 45-degree bevel, it's often simplest for me to make my first cut the whole length of the jigsaw mat. Firm pressure. Oh yes, that is much nicer. Except for that, such a much smoother cut. Really have to remind myself to replace the blades more quickly. So of this, you want a 9 by 8. I'm also going to cut this whole edge beveled because it might benefit me in future. Before, I'd like to find the panel I'm trying to match up, even though I know it's 9 by 8. Helps me to actually lay them on each other, especially where I just kind of pulled some of those corners a little out of square with each other. Gently score, gently score. There we go. With these, I'm going to try and make my cuts only as long as they need to be. And it's easier to start at the corner and come towards myself. If possible. Now, this way, I'm wrong-handed, so I'm going to come towards myself until I meet the corner that's already cut. And hopefully, that should make this fall away quite easily. There it goes. Bingo. So, what I've got right now is another corner I'd like to clean up a little. Another dog ear here. As before. Flatten out. Like this. And look, the cuts on this one were so smooth that they actually don't really need that much more smoothing out. I might take the rough sandpaper to this edge just to give it a sharper corner there. So now what I have is, let's line it up again with the prototype just to make sure before I start committing to glue. Alright, we want it deeper than high. We want it pretty short here to give reasonable armholes. And I know that was shorter than, I think this was the shorter edge that we gauged the 9 by. So, I can tell by looking, that's our 9, it's the other. So what's a good way to get these panels together? I mentioned I like to use hot glue, and through the years I've figured the best way to make the glue corner work nicely is actually to use a bit of masking tape before we start with any hot gluing. Try and lay that masking tape down and press one edge of that onto it and meet it up with an edge of this and press that on. I want them to be close enough that I can't see any of the masking tape peek through here. Now, in the background, I've been leaving a hot glue gun running. This is like the cheapest, worst hot glue gun in the world, but I've used it for every costume for a decade or more, so it's kind of a tradition. Start with a bead going down here that's going to be boiling hot, I know. And then a little stripe on either side, because glue is cheap. And now, I have a 90-degree angle built into my workbench, don't I? back to give it a bit more weight. I'm actually going to lay that there to give it even more weight. I'm going to lay my tire changing socket on there. And while that is cooling, I can prepare another side for masking taping. Okay, that's my water side. It's going to meet up with there. But we're going to make it meet up with here first. While that is still cooling, I can still mess with this far corner. Once again, the key is that none of the rest be visible. And on top of that, I'm going to let the glue gun continue to roast for a moment. That might be good, actually. Here for this. See, this is relatively fixed. I'm going to lay another weight there. And in the end, it all kind of connects to each other and makes a full rectangle. But it's nice to start strong. So, there, pushing it right up against. And just laying this here for as much corner action as possible. Now, while that is fusing, I'm gonna add another little bead of glue to this corner just to really shore that up. And perhaps this water bottle to ensure we don't go out of square. Okay, that is sealing. And what I need to do next is add masking tape to this panel. Should be that long. Yeah. Lay it out. Press it on here, I guess. That being there, that means it's going to meet up with that one. Perhaps it might be in my best interest to pre-tape both of these while I'm waiting for glue to cool. Okay. Once you catch one corner with the tape, you can sort of run along, pressing the mat into it to make sure there's a stick. And there we go. Masking tape on each side. And since this glue was sealed longer ago, let's start with it. Start with that corner. And now with this, what I just decided to do while going through is perhaps add a bead of tape right here so as to match it up with that. The final corner to seal these things is always the most awkward. So, got lots of glue here. There, the corner, and I don't have to start that high. I only have to go up to 9 inches of the other corner. So that's sealing. Now the most awkward. Now, doing this where I'm putting the masking tape on after always makes for an uglier corner, and I'll probably have to sand and smooth that one a bit along the way. But overall, I'm still going to use still going to try and use this here to provide some more weight for those corners. Just to help shore up the 90s, and add a little bead of glue along each corner as well to really help shore them up. Now I can see here on my blind corner I haven't perfectly matched up with the other 45, but that's what sand and eventually the Dremel tool is for. I've got that mounted right above head, easy to reach. Seem to have lost something off there. Okay, well that is all cool. I need to make, I guess, 9-inch long strips to go here and here for shoulders and head. I really just eyeballed these, but this might even be too thick. Let me get the foam again. Actually, I'm going to pause this for a bit to let that glue fuse and clear the workbench. Okay, done some more planning here. So what I have to make here is basically the corners, because what we've got here is unsupported up on those. And I realized that I need, I don't know, probably the width of this thing here, the width of the shorter side there. Initially I was thinking of, you know, just cutting 4 strips to that size, to this size. But I realized to make a cleaner corner here, there's a technique I can use to cut a single thing that's about as long as both of these. Now this was all eyeballed, so it doesn't have to be exact. That's what, around 2.5 inches. This is about 1.5 inches. Let's add that to say, I'm just gonna make 2 strips that are 4 inches long to wrap around these. And what I'll end up doing is when they're cut, I'll put an inside cut here at the 45 that will allow us to kind of fold that over without a glue seam here at all. Might not make sense until it's actually done. So here, I already know this is 9 inches, and perhaps I can line this up with this, because I know that's the right edge. Oh, and here, because I know that's 9 inches. And make burn on my finger from the glue gun that's still on. No, make a big cut right down here towards myself, the unsafest way possible. Perfect. So now I've got a smaller sheet to work with. I know that it is 9 wide, or 9, in depth to match the suit. And I'm gonna cut, I may not need the 45 bevels in here, but they kind of make things a little nicer inside anyway, so whether or not I need them, I'm gonna cut them right now. That's gonna be a very ugly one, but once again, and I decided these need to be about there, it's okay now. About 4 inches this way. I need to make 2 of them, so make 4 here. And hold on to that so it doesn't run away. Once again, ugly corner here on the floor. Another 45 degrees. And another 4-inch panel here. This for now, scrap. So, let's ensure those are, that's right. Now, it's not going here. As I said, this is going to cover both here and here. And in order to make that happen, I'm going to cut a channel in it. Before I go too far, I really need to fix this particular one. Too ugly of an edge. So it was not perfectly midway through. It was a little heavier one way than the other. We don't need an exact measurement, so I'm going to be a little bit arbitrary now, but I want a slit here. What I cut there is just a guiding line, because how this is really going to be cut now is with a Dremel tool. This part does not need to be pretty, and indeed it is not. I need a moment while I blow away some of this. Dust. But the purpose of this is to allow it to fold and make a nice edge, right? Like, yeah, right? That might even, I'll probably even cut a wider swathe there, but it's nice to get these cut. For consistency's sake, I'll do the same to the other one. Apologies for the volume here. standing sticks. So, I'm not going to attach them just yet because I might still trim these some more, but the purpose of these should now be clear. And I'm going to take a quick break. Now, off camera, I actually gave these shoulder things a bit of a rounding here because I know a head is going to have to pop up through the top of this. So before I even try attaching those things on, I want to perhaps create my angles. And much as before, the answer is always hot glue. And this, where it is so small, I'm actually going to hold it by hand for a bit. Perhaps while I do the second one. Multitasking. Because I realize I might be waiting for a bit while these cool. And something I like to do a lot when there's a lot of masking tape to be done is I tear off a few strips so they'll be at the ready to use. So why not do that with the other hand? Because I'll need to secure these to the shoulders and those to the armpits, for lack of a better word. So, several for each of these. Oh, masking tape done me dirty. This, and I'll try letting some pressure off these. I think they've set pretty okay. All right, enough that let's start here. So, what I've got here, start with the tape here and here. And glue all that, and I'll add the tape to the top portion after the fact. So there's inevitably going to be some glue here to clean up, but like eventually, after years of doing this, the temperature of hot glue starts to no longer bother you a whole lot. It doesn't really burn your fingers that badly. But it still hurts and it still burns. It's still dumb of me to touch it. There's a lot of excessive glue on this one, I would say. But sometimes sealing the corner that way might help. I'll do the same here. Inside, we'll add more to the inside corners. More is more when it comes to glue. More is more when it comes to tape. Ooh. Okay, I'll try the other side now. Perhaps where the top is the longer edge, I'll start there. Oh God, I don't even have the masking tape ready. So be it. I'm just gonna lay it gently. Perhaps not really try and seal the corners until I've got the tape at the ready. There's one. There's the top of this one. And that part of it as well. One across here for consistency. And here, ooh. On here the glue was drifted a bit while I was gluing over there. But this is all stuff that can be cleared up. I've got a long strip here. I'm going to use it to make a cleaner seam here, maybe. Okay, and with that, I've made one of those based on the ugly cardboard version of itself. Once again, this one's taller, a little wider, a little thicker, and eventually, to make it easier to go on, I'll no doubt end up actually making a cut here and putting some elastic in, so it will sit and rest normally, but it'll stretch like a t-shirt when you put it on, more or less. And you've got that torso with these arms, and I think that's a good start for a creeper. Sorry, an Enderman. Creeper was a previous year. Now that some of these corners have dried, we're fine to take off the tape. And I'll probably make another video later when more is to do.